Hi everybody, hope you're all okay. So today we're going to finish off our lovely leopard in motion picture. So we're going to add a bit of colour today, and I'm going to be using watercolours. Hopefully you've got some in school, and I'm also going to use a brown or a very dark brown or black pencil crayon. So you need one of these handy as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spin the camera around slightly. There we go, and there's our lovely leopard that we completed drawing last week. I'll just zoom in a little bit more. So what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to give him a little bit of a base colour, okay, just to sort of make him look a little bit more exciting, and hopefully you'll be pleased with what he looks like at the end. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm just going to choose like a yellow colour in my palette. So I'm going for sort of like quite a bright yellow like this, okay, and we're going to give him a little bit of a under colour or an undercoat. So you need to just wet your brush, give it a wipe on the edge of your pot, and then all I want you to do first of all is we're going to just very carefully paint. So you don't want your paint too watery, okay, because you'll just blob it everywhere. So we're just going to just push it in a little bit so you can see. So get quite a bit on your brush and really sort of twizzle your brush in your watercolours quite a lot. And I'm just going to come down a little bit like this. So make sure your yellow's quite bright. Now they have a little like white bit under their chin, so I'm not going to paint all of his head yellow. Can you see I'm just stopping about there? So I've left all this bit yellow. I'm sorry, white. Okay, and then I'm just going to get a little bit more on my brush, and I'm going to continue painting that yellow across like this. Really carefully, I'm going sideways. A little bit more on my brush, and again I'm just going to come down halfway into that leg and just underneath there. So I'm going to leave that bit of the leg white. Do you see what I mean? I'm going to come down and paint that bit under there yellow. So I've left half his leg white. A little bit more on my brush, and I'm coming down all the way down to his paws, and again leaving the tip of his paw white. Under here I'm going to go yellow, but again just sticking to half of my leg being yellow. You see, like that. Now don't worry too much if you've gone a bit wrong, okay, but if you can, just try and keep those parts white. Now I'm going to get more yellow, so really work that yellow onto your brush. I'm going to bring it all the way across, a little bit more, all the way onto his back, like so. Keep putting your brush in your water a little bit, and then giving it a wipe on the edge, and then really working your brush on your paint palette. I'm going to bring that all the way down to about there, to where we did a bit of smudging. Do you remember? We did that little bit of smudging down there. And then I'm just going to come down this leg. Like this, all the way down. And again, I'm going to leave part of that leg white. I'm coming down to there. Put another layer on. So make sure your your yellows nice and bright by really working that yellow onto your brush. And then I'm just going to get a little bit more yellow here. And again, I haven't gone right to the edge. I'm just coming down like that. And then what I'm going to do with his tail, I'm going to paint all of that yellow. So go really carefully, nice and carefully. There we go. Okay. Got a nice yellow tail like that. So now you can give your brushes a really good wash when you've done all of that. And the next colour I'm going to use is, I think I'm going to go for an orange. Okay, we'll make him nice and bright. Okay, so hopefully you have got an orange in your palette. I've got like a nice sort of, it's called a cadmium orange. Okay, so we're just going to have a little bit of that next. And we're just going to add a little bit of that tone onto our leopard. So with the orange, put a little bit. Now this is a bit where we're going to do a little bit of a technique. So I'm coming down his head really skinnily. Can you see? So a little thin line like that. Okay, now can you all wash your brushes? Give them a good wash when you've done that little bit of orange. So I've got a wet brush here, just give them a wipe with your fingers. Okay, now you've got a clean brush now, but a clean sort of half wet brush. Can you smudge some of that orange in? Can you see? And bring it down into your yellow a little bit. Yeah, so it sort of makes a lighter tone. Can you see how I've done that? Okay. Then you can give your brush, dip your brush back in your water again, get a little bit more water on your brush and go back into your orange paint, get a lot on your brush, so really twiddle that brush. And what we can do, we can put a little bit of orange underneath his neck here. Can you see? Just a tiny bit like that, just in that little bit there. Then give your brush a wash, give it a wipe with your fingers, yeah, get some of that soggy water off that we don't want. And then what I'm going to do is just smudge that in a little bit. Come up, yeah, so smudge it out, around like that, so it goes into your yellow a little bit. Okay. Then what we can do this lower leg. So pop your brush in your water again. And I'm going to get a little bit more orange on my brush. We'll do a little bit of shadowing under here. So I've got orange on this front leg, just at the top. Can you see? Like that. So just a little bit of orange in that shadowy bit. Wash your brush, get it nice and clean. Give it a wipe. And then very carefully, give it a wipe again if it's too soggy. Just going to bring some of that orange. Try not to cover your white. You can bring a little bit of the pale orange in, but try not to cover your white. Bring that orange down his leg. A little bit like that. Okay, so sort of smudge it out. The trick is not to have too much orange on your brush, everyone, if you can. So again, I'm just going to dip into my water and we can do the next leg, can't we? So I'm just getting more orange on my brush and I'm going to put some orange just down the back of his leg to about here, just like that. Okay, that's all I've put on. And then I'm wiping my brush again, giving it a clean and a wipe. And I'm going to just soften out that orange. You can come into your white a little bit. You see, so just come over a little bit Get a little hint of orange going into your white, like that. Okay, and it just softens in. So what happens is your water is lightening your orange, okay, and it's helping it blend in with the other colours that we've just put on. We can, so I'm just going to get a little bit more orange on my brush. Can put a little bit more orange just down here on their little feet, just on the underneath parts of their paws. So I've done a little bit there, and then a little bit coming down that leg. And again, wash and wipe your brush. This can be your wash and wipe picture, can't it? And just soften that out using that bit of your brush if you can. Okay. I'm sure it will look good, even if it's gone all splodgy, don't worry, okay? The trick is to wipe your brush, don't get too much water on your brush. So what we'll do next is we'll get some more orange on our brush, and we can continue across his little back. So I'm doing a stripe almost. Just don't go too far because we don't want our watercolour to dry. So I've gone about that far just before I've got onto that bit of his back there. And I want to soften that down into his body. So what I'm going to do, just going to smudge that in. So I washed and wiped my brush, and I'm just going to soften that in, bring that orange down, and bring it down into that white a little bit if you want to. Can get a little, go back up like that, and you can use it as a palette almost. Bring a little bit of that orange down. Okay. And then again, we're nearly at the back of our leopard now. So I'm getting a little bit more orange just on his back here. And I'm going to go into his tail. I'm going to paint all of that back bit of his tail, can you see, to about halfway before I get to the end of the curl. And then all I'm going to do is just soften it off again, like the technique we've been using. So washing our brush, giving it a wipe so it's not soaking wet. And then you can bring this orange all the way round to the end of his tail. So it sort of goes from orange to orange to yellow at the back of his tail. Now we're going to then just get a little bit more orange, we're nearly there, down his back leg, just on this bit here. You can come down to about there, and again, I'm wipe my brush with my fingers. So you might have a bit wet fingers, just give them a wipe. It's not going to hurt you, the water on your fingers, so don't worry. And just smudge that orange in. I'm going to go right across with that orange, and then just bring it down, smudge it all the way down to his little feet down there. And you can get a little bit more orange just down there. Okay. And then we're on our last little bit. We're on the back bit of his leg here. So I've got a bit more orange, and I'm just going to bring that down like we've been doing. So a little bit of orange on that back leg, but we need to make it soften out. So you know what to do. Wash and wipe your brushes and give it a smudge in like that. And then maybe just a little bit of orange, so get a little bit more on your brush. Put a little bit of orange just on his pads down there. Okay, so we've got the nice sort of tones coming in our lovely leopard. Now I'm going to do one more little bit. Now we're going to have to be really careful with this, everyone, because we don't want to ruin our tones and our form. So creating it to make it look like the leopard has got a little bit of form to it. So what I want you to do, I want you to find a dark brown in your palette. So I'm using this dark brown, okay? And this is called a raw umber. It's not the burnt sienna. We often use that, don't we? So I've got a little bit of brown on my brush. I'm going to put a little bit of brown really carefully just in his ear. And I'm going to just put a little bit of brown, tiny little spot just underneath his chin. Can you see? And all I want you to do, as carefully as you can, give your brush a wipe. And I'm just going to blend that in a little bit with my clean brush. Again, try not to get your brush too watery. Just blended a bit of that dark brown in with my watery brush. And I'm going to just put a little bit of dark brown under here. You see, like that. Give your brush a wash and just smudge it in a little bit. So we're just putting a little bit of shadow here and there, just under the legs, where part of him is in shadow. And then just a little bit, just down here, just under that leg. Okay. And then just soften that off. So that's like a shadow coming down. And there we have it, just a little bit of more shadowing in our lovely leopard. Now what you can do is, we can, obviously they live in quite dry countries, don't they? There's not a lot of rain. So I'm going to use a bit of yellow ochre. Now it's that golden colour that's in your palette. Okay, it's usually next to the black or the brown. And what we can do, while that's drying just for a minute, I'm just going to put a little bit of golden yellow ochre under where we smudged. Do you remember we did that smudging? Can you see? So you can get some yellow ochre. Don't get your paint too dry. And I'm just going to put a little bit underneath his feet like that. Okay, and that just makes it look like he's walking on like the sandy ground of the dry country that he lives in. I think it might be Africa they live in as well. Okay, so that's that. Now hopefully this is a little bit dry. So what we can do is we can just add a few markings, because he doesn't really look very leopard-like, does he? So I've got either my black or my brown pencil crayon. I've got a brown one here, but if you've got a black, that's fine too. And what we can do, we can just colour in his nose a little bit, where we did last week. And you can colour in his eye. So I'm just using a brown for this. Make sure you don't go over that little white dot. I'm just going to draw over his, and you can do a little bit of light shading just underneath that line. So I've gone over the smile, but then done a lighter shade underneath. Okay, hardly any. Okay, shading like that. And then we can just put a few little spots on him. Okay, so just with your, and you don't want to do them in a line, do them quite uneven, like patterned. Okay, like this. And you can do some almost like little U's. So like the letter U, but do them quite thick. We don't just want them like looking like that. Okay, so we can do some with almost a little centre bit inside. So I'm just drawing these little patterns. And then as you come down his back, they go a little bit more in a line, I think. They're a little bit more uniform. That means they're sort of more even, so they're quite neat. So you can follow the curve of your back. Did you see how I did that? So I went wee like that. And then underneath, you can put some more. Like that. And make sure my pencil sharpened, and then I'm just going to come lower down. And I think I'm going to go right down into his tummy. So try and do the curve if you can. Yeah, so try and follow this curve. And then I'm just going to come down his leg and put a few on his leg. All the way down, and then some inside his leg, on this inside leg. And I think I'll put a few just down on this leg. So just make sure, just be careful that your paint is dry. You might want to, if it's wet, I probably wouldn't continue. Yeah, just let your paint dry a little bit. So I've just done a few on that leg. And then just a few, mine's a little bit wet on that back leg, so just be careful with this. Just a few on that. And then I'm just going to almost just do them on the top of his tail, coming up. And then as they come round, just go a little bit smaller. And you can almost put a little bit of a dark bit on the end of his tail. Like that. And those are his markings, which look quite nice. And then if you've lost some of your whiskers, you can just put a few whiskers in. And any other little markings, you might want to add a few more up there. But I think everybody, there is your lovely, colourful leopard.